Hey, and welcome to Rauta 5. Once again, 5 different albums, 5 different styles, and also from various years. Most of them are 2021, but there are a couple of newer ones. Let's do it in alphabetical order and try to tackle these genres and albums in question. First, we have a Flat Earth from Finland with High and Lies. This is not exactly metal, but kind of a metal related, because the style could be summarized as grunge or alternative rock with some grunge influence. Now, how does that translate to metal? Exactly the same way as later era Alice in Chains is very metallic, even though one could make the claim in a justifiable ways that yes, it is indeed more rock and roll. But if you really think about it, a lot of hard rock bands are also overlapping with lots of hard rock bands. Heavy metal, hard rock, where you draw the line. Where you draw the line between harder ass heavy rock and kind of lighter end of heavy metal. Be it as may, Flat Earth does its style in a nice way. But where this is even more metal related is that it actually features members from bands like him, or used to. I guess their drummer is now gone from the band, from Amorphis, and other adventures as well. So there is definitely a strong metal ingredient as part of the band and goes beyond those two, obviously. Where does this band actually click nicely is the vocals are pretty goddamn good. The vocalist used to do this band called Polanski, which actually did very Alice in Chains kind of stuff with its rather grungy ways of creating alternative rock. And I can say, yeah, he totally nails it once again. That totally gives me later era Alice in Chains vibes. Now, of course, Alice in Chains is always compared to the Lane Staley, may he rest in peace, but I think this is more closer to later era than the original lineup and all that. Guitars are heavy and groovy, and this totally has a kind of a Seattle sound, if you will. Now, I'm gonna say this is pretty goddamn good considering the style, but it kind of lacks the best part of grooviness. For example, what Polanski was actually doing. Now, however, that is a different lineup, so we can't really compare these two together. But if you are into grunge in the first place, there is no reason why not give a Flat Earth a try. High and Lies sounds good. It's very pro-made. All the people in the band do their job well. It's finely produced, and the vocals are really great. As if only the songwriting was more impactful. Now it kind of lacks the catchiness, but other than that, nice creation. Check it out. Then we have another 2022 release by Figure of Speechless. This is also some kind of all-star group, much like Flat Earth, but this is more, I guess, of rock and roll heritage. However, this is more metallic as a release. Tunnel at the End of the Light is the name of this album. Having 11 tracks and roughly 1 hour of music. Well, a little bit beyond than that. There was quite a list of different artists featured on this album. I'm just gonna brutally take it out in order to save time and all. And this could be labeled as progressive metal. Once again, some people could say it's actually progressive rock with kind of a metallic touch. But I would say this is more metallic overall than just rock music. Being heavier and having kind of a very metallic sound. Very good production. If only production and decent heavy metal vocals could do a good album, this would be one of those albums you would totally be like, wow, it's doing waves. However, even though there are a lot of all-star members in this project, Mr. Glenn, I don't know if the Zoom is holding still, Glenn McAllister is the main guy of the band doing songwriting and all that stuff. There was this promo letter saying that he has been away from like 30 years from metal and rock music, doing some kind of other stuff with his guitar, very talented, very skillful and all. And now something drew him back to the table to do some progressive metal, and the lineup is very experienced. It's like more like veterans of this genre. Having a kind of a party here from various sources. You can pretty much check out the facts from online if you really need to. But instead of focusing the all-star lineup, we'll talk about the music briefly. This goes in terms of progressive metal in so many ways. You have this kind of a progressive elements, like how the riffs are composed, like, you know, the bass lines, okay, they have a little bit of a grooviness there on their own. The guitars are obviously doing the kind of a heavy metal gone progressive kind of riffs. They're cool melodies, and lead guitars, and vocalist is doing, like, you know, good job. But good job without passion. And that is one of the problems with this album. Now, everything here is filled with skill. It's like you have the top-notch production. You have those musicians doing their job just fine. But the music writing is more like, yeah, it's very lukewarmish. Now, I'm gonna say this, and if you're annoyed, I don't really care. The thing here is, it seems like this 30 years out of the business hasn't really helped to create an interesting album. For me, this sounds much like by musicians for other musicians. I guess this is an album filled with songs which are really, really nice to play and, you know, show it to the audience and all. But as a progressive metal album, it kind of lacks the hit parts, the really interesting parts. I mean, first of all, it's not exactly too progressive. It's not exactly too technical or anything like that. So you would assume, well, at least it must have some crazy ass good heavy metal riffs, which are there to just, you know, like do the trick when there is not exactly enough Pink Floydism, if you get my drift, or Deep Purpleism, to just do the trick. No, it's just lukewarm heavy metal riffs, like here and there, thrown about. Some of the ideas are definitely better, but there are also a lot of filler parts, which makes this rather mediocre of an album, with just some good talent. So, it's not bad, but it's very, very forgettable. Then we go to 2021, and this one is Gosudar with Morbid, Despotic Ritual. Even from the logo and the name, you can pretty much figure out this is death metal, the kind of old school ways. Nothing here indicates exactly something phenomenal, something new and all that stuff, but these guys actually make it work, just because sometimes a handful of basic riffs with decent production and growly vocals is all that you really need. Nothing here really sticks out of the ordinary, but if you are for rather basic, rather traditional death metal values and ideas, this is definitely going to cater to your needs. The thing here is, this is not exactly most memorable, not the most unique band, far from those, but it is an album that is actually having the certain kind of a punch that you kind of hope some of these albums would have. So, where it lacks in terms of being one of a kind of a deal, at least the band punches out with some nice basic death metal. So if you're up for that, this is for checking out. Another corner of death metal comes from Poland with an album called RS28 from a band called Sarmat. Not exactly the most catchy album title, but here the band name is tied to the album name, and here it is said. I'm gonna show it to you just to make the point. And these Polish guys have totally, it seems, gone through Behemoth's more death metalic phase, because let's be honest about it, there's nothing, absolutely nothing original here. So here it says the weapon of ultimate destruction, and that is what Sarmat RS28 is. A Russian kind of a ultimate weapon of mass destruction and all, a missile that is also known as Satan 2. Now that is a weird story, but I guess it fits when you're doing war-themed death metal. However, this is kind of a blackened death metal, very modern touch, fast tempo, lots of aggression and all that stuff. So it totally reminds me a Polish band doing Behemoth's death blackface, more on the death metal face than anything else. Now, if only this band had something else to say than just copy-paste Behemoth riffs and ideas, this could be even better. Because now it seems the band actually can play, they have the vision to do certain kind of modern death metal, but it lacks too much like these are Behemoth leftovers, and that's pretty much of it. Now, if you're a big Behemoth fan, Sarmat is definitely worth checking out. If you don't like Behemoth's modern death metal, then Sarmat has absolutely nothing for you to offer. The last, and unfortunately also one of the least here, is The Losts from France with Mystery of Deaths. This is an interesting case because it's also kind of a progressive metal, but more towards heavy metal. So let's make it clear here. Even if the Fear of Speechless is progressive metal, the Lost is heavy metal, even though they have some kind of overlapping ideas. The thing here is, this is basically an album which kind of summarizes the thing. Doesn't matter how good of a vocalist you have, doesn't matter how much good skill you pour into production, that is how good your album sounds. If you don't have the riffs and songs to kill with, then your album is not exactly a good thing. Now, the band knows how to produce a good album. I really like the vocals, which sometimes remind me of Rob Halford of Judas Priest. But where this album fails is doing good songs. I'll say it again. This album has some really nice guitar riffs and leads where you kind of feel like, hey, it's going to fly. But the flight is much of a chicken. You really can't see more than a few flappings of those wings, and then it comes down to the ground to just kind of prove, yeah, eventually it is actually a mediocrity with some nice touches here and there. Once again, reminding me of the Fear of Speechless. Both bands have good ideas here and there, lots of talent, but the songwriting is where those fail. That is the down thing of the Lost album as well. I kind of wanted to like this album because the vocalist is just so enjoyable with his style and all. And because everything just sounds good. I mean, those guitar leads and they're like, yeah. And there's some riffs which are like, yeah. But the overall feeling is like, it's a drag for 49 minutes or so. And eventually I was rather bored with the album. It's just something that if I had a radio on, it would go into the background and I wouldn't really care. With the exception that usually radio stations at least play hit songs. So even if you feel bored with the radio station, at least you have those hit songs which kind of could push the nostalgia button, whereas the Lost doesn't really do that. So if you are set up for lukewarmish heavy metal, then the Lost is definitely for you. But if you're looking for something better, I guess don't go there. So to pick up the best or bests of this pile, I would go with these two releases. Flat Earth for the grunge fanatics and Gosudar for death metal maniacs. None of these albums is outright good, but these three, Gosudar, Sarmat and Flat Earth, are definitely more on the decent side, whereas the two last ones, well, mediocrity or lukewarmish experiences. I hope you like some of these albums, or at least you will give it your chance and don't care what I say about your band or your friend's band or your band of your friend's friend or whatever. Check out them from the links provided in the description box, at least if they kind of fit your genre of given style. This is Rauta, and take care. See you soon with more reviews coming your way.